Welcome back. Here I am once again with another episode of Living in Denver. My name is Adam, and if this is the first time watching one of these videos, welcome. I make videos every week and share with people that potentially are out of state just a little bit more about what makes Denver, the Mile High City, so special. So if you are considering moving to Denver, you're in the right spot. If you haven't yet, my email, my phone number, and website are listed down here below. Feel free to reach out at any time if you're ever interested in connecting so I can just learn a little bit more about what you're looking for and hopefully provide some value to you and share a little bit more about why I've chosen to live in Denver, Colorado for my entire life, 40 years. So let's get started. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys some of my favorite neighborhoods in Denver, Colorado. So you're not going to want to miss this. I've got some really fun historic facts as well as just some really good information if you're somebody that maybe doesn't know too much yet about Denver. So you're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned. All right, as I said earlier, today we're going to be sharing a few of my personal favorite neighborhoods that are close to all the action and excitement of downtown Denver. So if you're somebody that's a young professional or maybe just a person or a family that loves to be around where all the new up and coming restaurants and bars and nightlife is located, these are the spots you're going to want to live. And if you haven't realized yet, I am a licensed real estate agent here in Denver, Colorado. My name is Adam Lang and I work for eXp Realty. My phone number, my email, my website, everything's listed down here below. I'm available 24/7. So if you're just somebody that's maybe not sure yet if Denver's the place for you, or maybe you've already identified that this is where you want to move to, reach out. I'd love to set up a Zoom call, just to spend 10 or 15 minutes with you, learn a little bit more about what is really important to you, and hopefully find out a way that I can provide some value. So really looking forward to connecting with you. But as I said, let's get started. Here are some of my favorite neighborhoods close to downtown Denver. Let's go. All right, so the first of the four neighborhoods that I want to share with you guys today is an area called Lower Highland, or it's also known to a lot of locals as Low-Hi. And it's just a neighborhood located here in Denver. It's just barely west of downtown. I actually live in an area called Sloan's Lake, which is right next to Low-Hi, so I could walk to Low-Hi in just a few minutes. But just from a map perspective, it's basically bordered by I-25 to the east. We've got Spear Boulevard to the south. We've got the Platte River to the west, and we have 38th Avenue to the north. So really good location for the Denver area. And one of my favorite things about Lower Highland, again, is just its proximity to downtown Denver and all the other really fun areas that are just near it, such as the Broncos Stadium, Meow Wolf, which is a really fun new spot, and all sorts of other just stuff right in this vicinity. So again, it's just a short drive, a bike ride. There's all of those little scooters nowadays around here that Lyft and Uber own. So that's just on your app. Within 2-3 minutes, you can find one that's close to you. Go hop on one with your phone, and it's a couple bucks per 30 minutes. It's really cheap and affordable, and a really nice way just to get around town. So if you haven't done that yet, check those out. So what's really cool though about Highlands, or I'm going to call it Low-Hi in this video, is just how it has a really growing and vibrant dining and nightlife scene. Lots of really popular restaurants, some of the best in the state are right in Low-Hi. Same with bars, breweries, ice cream shops, all that fun stuff. And Lower Highlands also offers a lot of opportunities for people that are more into outdoor recreation. The main thing being this Platte River that runs right through Low-Hi, and it basically goes right up against an area called Confluence Park. We have a really, really popular outdoor recreation superstore called REI that you might be familiar with. They have one of their headquarters, one of their biggest flagship stores right in the Low-Hi area where it backs up to Confluence Park. They even have their own little kayak area where you can actually test out some of their equipment and different products that they sell at this same REI location that backs up to this Low-Hi Confluence Park area. So super cool. Again, there's hiking, there's running, and just all sorts of active outdoors parks and people that are just enjoying the Low-Hi young, vibrant kind of demographic that for the most part is made up of. But I do want to mention though, there are a few cons or things that do at least deserve me mentioning. And the first one is just traffic and parking. So since we do have I-25 just to the east of Low-Hi, you do have, depending on where you're at, some of your views do have just kind of the busy highway in front of you. That's not a big deal though for most people. That's only kind of a select section that really looks out at that. I'd say more than that though, it's just the parking. Since it is such a popular part of Denver, you do have quite a bit of cars, especially on the weekends. And if you're living in some of the streets that are really close to this vibrant nightlife community, you might live in a place that maybe is a little bit noisier. So if you're, more of a early to rise, early to bed type person, you might want to consider, just when you're looking at LoHi, how close you are in proximity to some of the restaurants and bars and breweries and just the nightlife, just so you don't end up having a lot of noise when you're trying to go to sleep at night. I just want to tell you guys a little bit too about just the history and just a backstory of LoHi. So it has a really rich history, one of my favorite parts of Denver, just because of the architecture. So there's lots of these 1900s Victorian era homes, and a lot of these are still standing today, which is, I think, really fun just to walk around. I take my dog Charlie for walks around this area, and just like every time I take him for a walk, I just try and take a different route and just admire all these really cool buildings. So the neighborhood itself is really an interesting story for you guys. It's actually was one of the very first streetcar systems in all of Colorado, and it was started in about 1880s. So again, what is that, almost 150 years ago. And it went all the way up until about 1950. And this, another really kind of historic place in LoHi is we have what's called the Highland Bridge. And that was also built in the late 1800s. And it's just a really notable landmark in the area. But kind of going back to just some of the background of how LoHi became popular, it was a hub of the early 20th century Latino community. So had a lot of people that worked in downtown Denver, but they lived in this Highlands and Lower Highlands area. So it was actually designated a historic district several years ago as well. And going back even further than that, it was originally settled by Irish and German immigrants, and that was in the, I think, again, the late 1800s. And it was once a very big producer of meat packing. So one of the biggest meat packing plants in the entire state was right here in Highlands, so Lower Highlands. And it's also, had a lot of other industrial factories and warehouses and just a lot of employment for residents of Denver back in the, again, late 1800s and early 1900s. And you can still see some of these old buildings. Most of them, by now have been torn down and redeveloped into really nice, multi-use, again, restaurants, apartments, single-family homes, all that good stuff. So, one last thing I just want to share a little bit more about the neighborhood was just how it's become incredibly popular recently. So in the last, I would say 20 years, LoHi has been without a doubt one of the most popular areas for people in Denver to live. So I'm a Colorado native of 40 years. Back when I was in high school and as a kid, this area, you wouldn't even think twice about it. It was just, again, old homes, nothing exciting, no restaurants, bars, none of that stuff. So it really has just become very vibrant and popular just in more recent years. So, I think part of that too does attribute though to the mixed feel of these older Victorian homes along with new builds and, newer construction. So you really have this cool, vibrant mix of everything. A few favorites of mine as far as nightlife and restaurants and all that good stuff. One of my favorite restaurants in all of Denver is a really cool restaurant called Linger. It was, it's been around for a long time, very popular. Another one is called Avanti. And there's also a really fun ice cream shop called Little Man Ice Cream right next door to that kind of area. So a few really cool spots there. I also just have a few bars that I like to go to with my friends in this area. One of them called Happy Camper. So check that out too if you guys are looking for a really fun outdoor, indoor space, really cool patio. So, LoHi has also become a really popular destination for just people that like to have that proximity to the Highline Canal Trail. So this Highline Canal Trail is similar to where that Confluence Park is, where you can just hop on this trail, you're off the path from cars, and you can take it all the way to Cherry Creek, which seems kind of far, but actually when you're on a bike trail, you can get there in maybe about 45 minutes. And you can also go the other direction and go up the Platte River. So a lot of really accessible outdoor activity things just right in the backyard of living in LoHi. One other really fun fact is it also had the very first brewery in this big craft beer movement that we had in Denver. So, Denver now has the Mile High Brewing Festival. It's the largest beer festival in the world after Oktoberfest. So if you haven't been to that before, it's in the fall. Huge turnout, tons of breweries. It's all at the Colorado Convention Center, thousands of people. Starts off pretty calm and mellow, but as you can imagine, after people have been tasting beer for about 3 or 4 hours, gets a little crazy towards the end. Definitely put it on your bucket list. That first brewery, though, that I mentioned when this all kind of got started was the Wynkoop Brewing Company. That was established in 1988, I believe. And it's just attracted since then a lot of other craft breweries. So in that vicinity of Lohi, you have all sorts of really trendy and fun breweries just to kind of bar hop and check out. A couple last things about Lohi. At the end of 2022, the median home price was $821,000. So definitely on the high end compared to a lot of the other neighborhoods around here. That price per square foot averages out to $550. And the average days on market, again, this is at the end of 2022, we were at about 28. So if you guys are checking out different neighborhoods around Denver and you really like to have that proximity to downtown, but still feel a little bit detached where you have you have a backyard and you have the ability to still walk your dog and not worry about getting hit by cars, not being quite in the hustle bustle of the downtown area of a city, definitely check out Lohi. It's one of my favorites. All right, so this neighborhood that I want to share with you is another one that I've spent a fair amount of time in because a few of my very best friends live in this neighborhood, and it's called Baker. So Baker, it's a historic neighborhood and it's located just south of downtown Denver. A lot of really cool history that I want to share with you about Baker specifically. I'll get into that in a little bit, but one thing just to share first is that it was a neighborhood similar to Capitol Hill, where it was definitely known for its Victoria era homes, and many of those have really been beautifully preserved. And also Baker's one of my favorite areas because it has a lot of mature trees. So when you're driving down different neighborhood streets in Baker, you'll see lots of really tall mature trees. In the fall, you've got lots of colors, really vibrant yellows and oranges, and just a really beautiful part of Denver to live, in my opinion. So as far as location, if you're looking at it on a map, so with Baker, you're basically bounded by Broadway to the west. You've got 6th Avenue to the north. You have Downing Street to the east, and Mississippi Avenue to the south. So, and it's definitely a neighborhood that is home to a lot of local businesses, which I really like. So definitely doesn't feel nearly as commercial and cookie cutter like a lot of the neighborhoods that you'll find if you go further west or maybe down south towards Littleton and Highlands Ranch and some of those areas. So with Baker, you got a lot of character, a lot of attitude, which I think is a really special thing about Baker. So a lot of those local businesses include, mom and pop restaurants, really trendy and edgy bars, different shops, and some really unique parks. One of those being a popular park called Sunken Gardens Park. If you haven't been there before, check it out. It's really nice. The neighborhood is also definitely home to several popular cultural institutions, one of those being the Denver Bazaar. Check that out too if you've never heard of it. Pretty special place. It's basically just a weekly market, and it features local artisans, artists, and it's also close to that Molly Brown House Museum that I had mentioned earlier in one of my other segments, which is a very historic Molly Brown House Museum where Molly Brown again was on the Titanic.
I was right. You and my son are just about the same size.
So one of the only survivors from the Titanic. So definitely, it's a part of Baker that's dedicated just to the life and legacy of Molly Brown, and she's also a very famous Denver socialite, so lots of history there. In recent years, Baker has definitely become a little bit increasing in popularity, I think mainly with young professionals and just younger families, and definitely starting to be considered one of Denver's most sought after neighborhoods. A big part of that is definitely due to just the proximity to downtown Denver. Similar to a couple of the other neighborhoods that I've mentioned, it is so conveniently located for nightlife, but also for a lot of the parks and even the different sidewalk and paved path systems and networks that we have where you can hop on one of these and on your bike with your kids or with your girlfriend or family, whoever you're with, and not have to worry about cars getting in your way, or you can just kind of go and not have to worry about that kind of stuff. So from a perspective of safety, I think it's a really nice location because you have a lot of that just very easily accessible from where you're at. So, I mentioned just the proximity to Denver. For people that are still commuting or going somewhere to work, I think that Baker has one of the best locations, again, because of that proximity. So it's a great place to live, work, and play. And just going back a little bit now to some historical stuff to share with you. I was doing a little bit of research before creating this video, and I actually had not known about this until I started digging in a little bit deeper. So the Baker neighborhood, it was Denver's very first streetcar suburb. And this was developed in the late 1800s. And it was basically just a form of transportation before the automobiles were invented. So the streetcars in this Baker neighborhood specifically were a very important part of the reason why Baker started to become more developed as a suburban area. So the streetcars, they were operated by, it was a company called the Denver Tramway Company, and they were basically the main public transportation provider in Denver during the 19th and the early 20th centuries. And these streetcars, they were just a form of transportation that allowed residents of Baker and some of the other neighborhoods close by to easily travel to and from the city for work and for other purposes. So the extension of this streetcar line to Baker was definitely one of the major factors in the growth and development of specifically the Baker neighborhood. The streetcars, they also made it just possible for residents to live in a suburb outside of the core of the city, yet still have access to the amenities and the opportunities and just all the benefits of the city, but not have to necessarily live there. So it's one of the very first times where there was a form of transportation that provided residents the ability to not live in the immediate city, but still have more of a suburb lifestyle. So I think that was just a fun fact that I learned a little bit about Baker. I didn't realize that was where a lot of this had started. And as far as what streetcars even are, they are basically powered by this overhead electrical wire, and they were pulled by a horse-drawn carriage. And that was up until 1891. And that's when the electric streetcars were starting to be introduced into Denver. And this was actually, Denver was one of the very first cities in all of America to adopt this technology. So even back, 130 years ago, we were already kind of setting the trends and one of the first to adopt some of these really interesting, unique forms of transportation. So the streetcar system, a couple more things about that. So it was very extensive as far as the lines running throughout the city, and it was definitely connecting not just Baker, but a few other neighborhoods as time went on, connecting those neighborhoods to the city center. So this was definitely one of the main reasons why Denver started to really expand and very quickly, adapt to some of these neighborhoods and communities just outside of the city center, some of these suburbs. These streetcars were definitely a very popular form of transportation, and this Denver Tramway Company, it was basically coining themselves as the largest streetcar system in the United States. So not only were we one of the first, we also had one of the most extensive. But again, when the automobiles and buses started to be invented in the 1920s and 30s, that definitely led to a pretty steep decline of these streetcars and ended up completely, being dismantled and taken away in the early 1950s. But even though they're not in operation anymore, you can definitely still see the legacy of the streetcars. There are definitely a few side streets and just different parts of the Baker neighborhood where you can still check out kind of the remnants of what's left from all of this. So you can't find them in very many places, but you definitely can see some of the old tracks and just kind of see some of the aftermath of one of the very first streetcar suburbs in the world. So just want to share also just a couple, again, being a 40-year Colorado native, a couple of my local favorite spots in the Baker neighborhood. If you guys like sushi, one of the best sushi spots in all of Denver, it's called Sushi Den. Definitely check that out. There's also a really kind of different place called the Family Jones Spirit House. Make some really good mixed drinks, just kind of artisan cocktails. Check that out if that's something that interests you. And there are also some really nice parks in Baker. So we have Garfield Lake Park, we have Lincoln Park, and another really good one is South Platte River Trail. So talking again about this infrastructure of trails and paved trails for you to ride your bike on and not worry about cars. The South Platte River Trails, again, a really good option for that. You can go all throughout Denver, all the way even down to Cherry Creek, or you can just get all over the place without ever having to stop for a stoplight or worry about a car. So really cool. As far as education, we've got Baker Elementary School and also Baker Middle School, which are both up and coming schools. Definitely worth checking out if you have young kids and interested in the school districts. And as far as just some real estate stats, the end of 2022, we had the median listing home price at $700,000 right on the dot, which was about $460 for the average price per square foot, and pretty similar to a lot of the areas kind of in this downtown and the surrounding neighborhoods. Average days on market for Baker was at 26. So to kind of sum all this up, if you're somebody that potentially still needs to work in downtown Denver, you still need to commute to work, and you potentially do have a family, or at least are somebody that is an active person that likes the easy accessibility for parks and hiking and just outdoor activities, the ability to jump on a scooter or grab an Uber and within a couple minutes be at some of the best live music venues in the state, definitely check out Baker. A couple of my best friends live there. I spent a lot of time here, and it's still today one of my favorite parts of Denver, one of my favorite neighborhoods. So check it out. All right, so I want to share another neighborhood with you. This one is a little bit different from some of the others that I've talked about before, and this one is called Capitol Hill. So as the name implies, you can imagine this is close to the state capitol. With that, you can also imagine comes a lot of very politically active, very forward-thinking type demographic of residents. However, there's also a lot of youth, there's a lot of young people that live in this area. Also a lot of people that have been around and just lived in the neighborhood for 50, 60 years. So you have another neighborhood in Denver that's pretty eclectic. You have a good mixture of a little bit of everything. So depending on what street you're on, you can really see a lot of variety from one to the next. It's definitely, I would say more than anything though, Capitol Hill is really known for its diverse community, that diversity, and definitely a lot of really historic architecture. So again, talking about location and where it is on a map, or just kind of those specific boundaries, we have Colfax Avenue to the west. We have a street called Downing Street to the north. We have York Street to the east. And we have 7th Avenue to the south. So Capitol Hill really isn't that large of an area, but I will also say it has some phenomenal parks. So even though it's not that large of an area, it has some of the best parks in the state, in my opinion. A few of those would be like Cheeseman Park, Civic Center Park, and Congress Park. All three of those really popular, especially on like the 4th of July weekend. You go down to this part of town, they have really cool live music festivals, all sorts of stuff going on. So definitely keep that in mind if you're ever out in Denver over the summertime. For schools, we've got East High School, we have Maury Middle School, some pretty good schools, especially for sports. East High School's had a really good basketball team off and on for pretty much my whole life. So definitely some pretty good athletes in this part of town. And as you also can imagine, Capitol Hill is very, full of rich history. It's one of definitely the most diverse, politically active neighborhoods, like I said. It actually was originally a really prestigious residential area back in the day, where a lot of the Denver elite used to live, which I think is always a fun fact to share. It has the site of the Molly Brown House, for example, and that's the home of Molly Brown is the unsinkable Molly Brown.
Hey, who thought of the name Titanic? Was it you, Bruce?
She was, one of the survivors of the Titanic. Definitely a really fun place you can go check out, and they have a little tour there you can do. And if you're into history, a pretty fun spot to check out. And a lot of the neighborhood itself, it was developed, I believe, in the late 1800s, so pretty old. And it was home to, again, a lot of these very prominent citizens, politicians, businessmen, socialites. So back in the day, Capitol Hill was the spot to be. And it was named, as you can imagine, after the Colorado State Capitol building, which is located just a few blocks away from this part of town. So it was definitely, like I said, a very prestigious neighborhood in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. A lot of grand Victorian homes that you'll notice because of that. A lot of history, a lot of really old mansions, which are fun to walk around and check out. But as times have changed, a lot of these also unfortunately have been torn down and redeveloped into newer developments, apartment buildings, stuff like that. So there still is, though, a lot of historic qualities to this part of Denver. So one of the other most important cultural and historical landmarks also, in addition to the Molly Brown House, is the Governor's Mansion and also the Denver Botanic Gardens. Denver Botanic Gardens is one of my favorite places to recommend to people, especially over Christmas. They do an amazing job with decorating the whole area with not only all these incredible plants and all sorts of flora and fauna, but they have a really great Christmas light display to accompany that. So if you're here over Christmas time, definitely check out the Botanic Gardens. It sells out way in advance, so you have to get your tickets early December, and they stay actually open for the Christmas stuff through like the middle of January. So if you don't get it in time for Christmas, check online, and you might just end up having to go a few days after Christmas. So this neighborhood, like I said a second ago, it definitely underwent a significant amount of changes, and that was kind of in that mid 20th century. So after that kind of original popularity that I talked about, and that was the time when a lot of these really big homes and mansions did get replaced with apartment buildings and different commercial properties. So you still though can see a good eclectic mix of both. And like I said, despite the changes, this neighborhood really has managed to just maintain that historic feel, that character, that charm, some of these historic landmarks, cultural institutions, just really vibrant. So I think out of all the different neighborhoods in Denver, this is one that has the most character. So if that's really important to you, definitely check out this neighborhood. Very diverse, eclectic. I'm trying to think of other words to use to describe it. But I think the big difference, though, more recently has been just some of this redevelopment. So there is a little bit more residential, apartments, stuff like that, and a little bit more commercial being built. So definitely also known for its nightlife. So since it is so close to downtown Denver, really good variety of bars, restaurants, even a couple very popular music venues. So if you guys are into live music, this is definitely an area where you could, literally walk from your house to some great spots to check out live music. Denver in general has really, really good live music between Red Rocks, some of these different venues downtown. One of my favorite parts about living here in Denver. And I guess I'll share too just a few of my favorites, so kind of some local favorites for this area. The Capitol Grill, one of the best steaks in town, awesome spot. The Hornet is another very popular restaurant. They've got some live music in there occasionally too, which is fun. I mentioned at the beginning of this video about some of the parks. So again, Cheeseman Park, Civic Center Park, and Congress Park. All three of those are really fun places to go in the summertime and just hang out for the day. A lot of big events that they also host there. So really cool spot to have so close to where you live if you live in this area. And last but not least, I'll just share with you guys a few metrics, a few real estate facts for the end of 2022. So in December of 2022, the median home price in North Capitol Hill. So Capitol Hill does have a little bit of a variety between where the nicer homes are, nicer meaning more expensive homes, a little bit more developed, higher end homes. That's what we would consider North Capitol Hill. So the median home price for the end of 2022 for North Capitol Hill was $515,000, and the average price per square foot in that area was $470, and the average days on market for that was 26. So again, if you're into that more progressive, feel in a neighborhood, and you still want to be close and walking distance to a lot of great activities, definitely check out this part of town, Capitol. All right, so this neighborhood is definitely one if you're maybe a little bit on the younger side, or if you're definitely somebody that stays pretty up with the trends and is hip and young at heart. So the area I want to talk now about is an area called River North, but most locals here, we call it Rhino. So RiNo, it's definitely a trendy, up-and-coming neighborhood, and it's located just right in the heart of Denver. This is one of those areas where, as a local, as a native, when I was a kid growing up, this was nothing but just industrial, just kind of gross. It just had no character to it. It was just a bunch of old, dirty buildings, industrial. Nowadays, it's one of the hippest places in all of Colorado to hang out. So RiNo has definitely done a complete 180 over the last 20 years. And if you're somebody that really likes to be in an area that is up and coming and edgy and hip and fun and trendy, definitely RiNo's your spot. It's a neighborhood that's known for its vibrant street art. Almost every street you walk down in RiNo, you'll see graffiti, tasteful graffiti, very professionally done, artistic, murals on the sides of buildings, all that sort of stuff, which is, in my opinion, super, super fun and just different, and a very cool thing about RiNo. You can also find, because of that, a lot of art galleries, studios, and just different creative spaces and co-working spaces. So kind of going back to that up and coming, trendy, younger, more youthful neighborhood. So that's something that you're interested in. Definitely RiNo might be a spot you want to check out. It's also just home to a variety of a lot of other local businesses. So, restaurants, bars, a lot of breweries, home to some very popular cultural institutions like the Denver Central Market. It's a really up and coming, popular food hall. Features local vendors, kind of like food trucks, but indoors. If you haven't been to one of those before, this is a really fun one to check out. And also has the Denver Art Museum. So talk about crazy architecture. This building, just the building itself, is just something you just need to almost stop and really totally take in, and definitely a fun spot to check out and take pictures if you're wanting to just admire some very eccentric but well done architecture. In recent years, RiNo has become increasingly popular with those young professionals because of a lot of the things that I just mentioned. Definitely considered to be probably Denver's most exciting and innovative neighborhood. Again, very good proximity to downtown Denver. So if you are still needing to go into downtown for work, RiNo is a fantastic place because of its close proximity. You could walk to work in most cases, depending on where you are exactly in downtown. Let's see, what else can I share with you guys about RiNo? Definitely a center, I would say, for the craft beer scene. So we have a lot of breweries, partially because of that industrial zoning area. So it makes for a really good location for a lot of the best breweries in Denver. A lot of these craft breweries, they just kind of call it home. And that's expanded now into whiskey and all sorts of different other types of alcohol and different drinks too. So Mile High Spirits is one of my favorites. If you want to talk a little bit about just the location from a map perspective, that's similar to what I've done for a few of these other neighborhoods. For RiNo, so for River North, you're going to be bounded by Broadway to the west, 38th to the north. You now have the South Platte River again to the east, similar to a few of these other neighborhoods we've talked about, and Spear Boulevard will be to your south. So, and this neighborhood, it was historically a hub for industrial warehouses and factories, and one of the most prevalent or the most well-known was the American Can Company. And that was one of the largest employers in all of Colorado. And that was, something that was a staple for this part of Denver for a long, long time. In the late 1990s, maybe the early 2000s, that's when it really saw this transformation that I was talking about, where it really became this vibrant arts and culture district, and started to have all these different galleries and studios emerge and kind of take over. So again, if you were here 20 years ago, you wouldn't even believe it. Nowadays, people don't even really realize what it used to be. So they just think of it as this really up and coming and very unique place to hang out. So as far as the name RiNo, that name comes from the confluence of the South Platte River and the Cherry Creek. So that's how that name came about, River North. It's definitely an area, a part of Denver that continues to see a lot of growth. So even though it's already transitioned and changed quite a bit over the last 20, 25 years, there's still a lot more to go. So you still see a lot of the new build construction that you'll see in the Denver area. A lot of it still is in RiNo. See a lot of big cranes and just big, large scale apartment communities being built. So in addition to some single family homes, I would say that RiNo has a very large percentage of homes being multifamily. So depending on what you're looking for, if you're looking for a condo or a townhome, there are a fair amount of those. But just kind of keep your eye out when you're searching in RiNo and be aware of that the majority, or a good chunk at least, of the housing in RiNo is apartments, condos, that type of real estate. So other than that, I just wanted to share that the RiNo district is tending to be a little bit on the less expensive side compared to some. It's not quite as steep as Highland or Lower Highland, which is just right across the other side of Interstate 25. So depending on what's most important to you, some people will choose RiNo and others might choose Highlands or Low-High. If you prefer to be a little bit out of the craziness and some negatives that come with that, like maybe a little bit more of a homeless population, a little bit more panhandling, stuff like that, you might prefer to be over in the Highlands area, again on the west side of the interstate. If it's more important to you just to be really close to downtown and just really have that energy and that excitement of being right in the thick of it, RiNo would definitely be one of the spots you should be checking out. So they have some great festivals and events, especially in the summertime. A couple of them being the Denver County Fair. We have the Denver Arts Festival, and a really fun one to check out if you've never been to before is the Denver Chalk Art Festival. So you can walk around, and similar to all the graffiti and murals on the buildings, a lot of those same artists and similar vibe artists, they'll actually do something on the streets too, and have just amazing chalk art to check out. Some of it you wouldn't even believe. You can't even believe that's actually being drawn with chalk. So if you haven't been to a chalk art festival before, check that out. Can't remember what month it's in. I believe it's in either July or August. And then just back to just this vibrant community. RiNo's continuing to see more and more bars, breweries. There's a new music venue in the area, some more nightlife. Few of my favorites as far as local spots to check out. I would definitely, like I said a second ago, the Denver Central Market is fun. That's where they have similar to like a food truck, but indoors. You got Ratio Beer Works, The Source. You have another really popular one called Zeppelin Station. And then as far as parks go, we have a really cool Denver skate park. So if you're into skateboarding, rollerblading, any of those type of sports, the Denver Skate Park is very popular. You're always going to see a ton of people there. A lot of really good talent hanging out there. We have 4 Mile Historic Park. What else we have? We have Rail Yard Park. So quite a few parks, even though it is kind of in this industrial area, there is a lot of really accessible outdoor, healthy lifestyle places at your fingertips, even in this RiNo industrial area. So definitely check some of those out. As far as schools go, you do have the Denver School of the Arts and also the Denver School of Science and Technology. So you have a couple universities that are a little bit smaller scale universities, but because of that, you have some of the big brick buildings and university feel kind of areas within RiNo. Again, along with a lot of co-working spaces and just a lot of young professionals that choose RiNo to be their home base. So also just sharing with you guys some of the stats from the end of last year. So December 2022, the median home price was $601,000, so a little bit lower than some of the neighboring areas. Again, Highland and Lower Highland, you could almost throw a football and hit it just on the other side of I-25. So right next to RiNo, you're looking at almost a $200,000 less median home price in RiNo than you would see at Low-High. So a little bit more affordable. Average price per square foot about $500, $530, and the average days on market was just a couple days longer than a few of these other neighborhoods. It was at 30. So kind of summing all of that up, if you're really looking for a vibrant place that has lots of young professionals and just lots of art and visually appealing buildings, really good restaurants, bars, breweries, all of that fun stuff that goes along with being in a more developing neighborhood and community, definitely check out RiNo, or also known as River North. Talk to you guys soon. All right, well, there you have it. Those were a few of my favorite neighborhoods in close proximity to downtown Denver. Hopefully you got some value out of this, maybe even learned a thing or two with some of those history facts that I shared with you. But again, what I wanted to just leave you with more than anything is that I am a licensed real estate agent here in Denver, Colorado. My name is Adam Lang with Adam Sells Denver and eXp Realty. I would love to connect with you. So even if you're not sure if Denver's the place for you, reach out to me. My phone number, my email, my website, everything's listed down here below. And just shoot me a message and let's connect. We can also set up like a quick 15-minute Zoom call and just get a chance to learn a little bit more about what your interests are and what is maybe motivating you to consider moving to the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. I would love to learn how I can provide more value to you. So with that being said, look forward to talking to you guys soon, and I'll see you on the next episode of Living in Denver. Talk to you then.